Hello, welcome back. For years, the Swaggart household seemed like a symbol of unity. With faith and tradition holding everything together, to outsiders, nothing appeared out of place. Sunday services were full of life. Donnie Swaggart preached with his usual energy, and Frances Swaggart remained a graceful, supportive presence. But slowly, subtle changes started to appear. Frances, known for her strength and clarity, began to seem tired and distracted. Her once close connection with Donnie appeared to have frayed. Church members whispered that the two hadn't spoken in days, an unusual distance for such a tightly knit ministry family. That warm, respectful bond they'd always shown was no longer visible. Something unseen had shifted, and people began to take notice. At first, the tension seemed like a private family matter. But soon, rumors began surfacing, soft, uncertain mentions of an allegation. No one knew exactly what it was, but the weight of the word alone carried enough to rattle those close to the ministry. It soon became clear that Frances had confronted her son privately, accusing him of something serious, while specifics didn't immediately surface. Whispers about financial discrepancies and inappropriate behavior emerged. Some insiders claimed she had received a letter from someone who once worked closely with Donnie, expressing concerns about his actions. Whether the letter held proof or not didn't matter. Frances was disturbed enough to act. The shock deepened when Donnie didn't immediately deny the claims. His silence fed the confusion. This wasn't just a disagreement between mother and son, it was becoming a spiritual and public reckoning. People who had trusted the Swaggarts with their hearts, prayers, and donations were left in limbo. What was happening behind closed doors? Why wasn't anyone speaking up? That's when Debbie Swaggart, Donnie's wife, found the courage to share her voice. For years, she had been the quiet, supportive figure by his side, never seeking attention, never raising controversy, but deep down, she had carried her own burdens. When Frances finally spoke, Debbie felt a shift inside her. It was a silent validation of everything she had been feeling for years. And with that, she stepped forward with her truth, not to blame or shame, but to finally breathe freely. Debbie opened up gently, but her words were full of emotional weight. She spoke of a marriage that looked perfect on the outside but was deeply lonely on the inside. She recalled nights waiting alone, unanswered questions, and an emotional distance that never healed. She admitted she had convinced herself this was just the cost of being in ministry, but Frances's stand showed her she didn't have to keep suffering in silence. What she shared wasn't explosive in detail, it was heartbreaking in its honesty. She described a life where she often felt invisible, where conversations ended in silence, and her concerns were brushed aside. Debbie didn't accuse Donnie directly, she just told her truth, and that was enough to shake the church community. Donnie, meanwhile, remained quiet. He continued preaching, standing before the congregation as if nothing had changed. But those who looked closely could see the difference. His usual fire was dimmed. His voice, once full of authority, now felt distant. As questions grew louder, his silence became more difficult to defend. Church members began to lose faith not in God, but in the man they had followed for so long. Longtime staff and ministry leaders urged Donnie to speak, to bring clarity. But he refused, saying he didn't want to stir drama, that God would reveal the truth. But this wasn't just about waiting for divine timing, it was about accountability. Inside the ministry, the effects were immediate. Staff quietly stepped away, church attendance dipped, donations slowed. People weren't angry, they were disoriented. The image of unity had cracked, and now all they wanted was transparency. Social media, too, echoed the confusion. The Swaggart name, once strong and untouchable, now carried uncertainty. Frances, though private, stayed firm. Debbie's honesty continued to ripple through the hearts of many, especially women, who had once felt silenced like she had. At last, Debbie chose to leave people with something more than pain. She wanted her final message to bring healing. She reminded others to seek God for themselves, not through public figures. She urged women to trust their instincts, to know they deserve to be heard, and she made it clear truth isn't always betrayal. Sometimes it's the purest act of love. As she spoke, her voice was calm, steady. She didn't cry, she didn't point fingers, she simply let go of years of silence, finding peace in the process. In the end, this wasn't just about a scandal. It was about truth rising from a place of hidden pain. It was about the courage of two women, Frances and Debbie, who chose honesty over image. And though the future of the Swaggart ministry remains uncertain, one thing is clear: healing only begins when silence ends.